Right. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever everyone's joining from. My name is Chisom Obiesu Ume, and I have the pleasure of facilitating today's session titled "Work for Healing." So, finding purpose in our work through storytelling and a healthy work ethics. And I'm going to briefly introduce Dr. Ronke Oke. So, Dr. Oke is an academic diversity practitioner, public programmer, thought leader, and socialpreneur who uses her various platforms to address social issues, build individual capacity, and create real sustainable social impact. Dr. Oke specializes in race and identity formation with a particular emphasis on transnational conceptions of Blackness, Afrofeminism, Afropoliticism, and anti-racist, transstructuralist social justice. In the past, her research sought to reconstruct a philosophical account of lived experiences that does justice to the experience of race. So currently, Dr. Oke serves as the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, and is a Deputy Title 10 Coordinator, and Assistant Professor of Liberal Arts at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, where she really operationalizes the tool of her academic training to drive the strategic implementation of diversity change agenda. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Oke. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Chisom, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm going to share my screen, so I'm going to ask if the people who are in the audience can see it. Just type in the chat box. And we will be using the chat feature a lot during this workshop. So please let me know if you are able to access it and if you can see the presentation. Okay, so again, welcome to the workshop. So this workshop is an interactive workshop. And so we're going to start with our first interactive part or component of this workshop. And so I like to always begin all of my workshops in this way with what I like to call story. And story is an improv game where the moderator says the prompt and turns it over to various participants to continue and build a story. And so the story will develop as the participants move, add their own piece, their own portion to the story. So if you are interested in participating in story, please use the raise hand feature so that I can call on you. So I'll give you all a second to raise your hands. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Pearl. Any other takers? Thank you, Cass. Can I get at least one more person? Can I call on our moderator, Chisom, to participate in this?
Yes, I'm open to that. And also, Uchama had raised her hand. So we have 4 people, including myself.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Thank you all. I didn't see you, Uchoma, so thank you so much. Okay, so like I said, what's going to happen is that we are building a story. So I am going to give you the prompt. The prompt is displayed on your screen. And after I read the prompt, I will turn it over to Uchoma, then to Pearl, then to Cass, and then to Chisom, and then back to me. So after you add your part, say the word and it's going to indicate to the person that they need to pick up the story. Okay, so I'm going to read the prompt twice, and then I'm going to turn the story over to Uchoma. Are we ready? Okay, ready or not, here we go. So it's story time. Here we go. I didn't hear my alarm, and now I am late for work. So I get out of bed and then Uchoma is going to pick up. So here we go. It's story time. Let's begin. Shoot.
And
I didn't
Okay,
hear
go ahead.
my alarm, and now I am late for work. So I get out of bed
And now I'm freaking out, but I still need to grab coffee. So I go to my kitchen, try to make coffee. In my haste, I spilled on myself and
Pearl.
And I scream, Fuzz! What the heck have I done now? And
Cass.
I decided to just leave it there. And I continued to get ready for work and left the house.
And Chizo.
And at that very moment, I figured that I was wearing a white dress and I have coffee stains all over the dress. And now,
And it goes back to me. And now I am at work with a white dress on, coffee stains on my dress, and I start the day with a ton of meetings. And I go throughout my day, and I come back and I deal with the mess that I created in the kitchen. The end. So thank you all. That was great. I hope you all enjoyed that. So what did we learn from that? So one of the things that we learned, and part of what we're going to talk about throughout this workshop, are the ways in which the stories that we tell about the work that we do or create a certain relationship or connection between who we are, our own self-understanding, and the work that we do. So the bad day that I woke up late, that I had a terrible experience getting ready, spilled coffee on myself, and now I feel embarrassed. That self-understanding is going to impact how I show up in meetings, how I move throughout the workday, and it's also going to impact how I feel about the work that we do. And so, because of those things, because there is a connection between our self-worth and our work, we need to begin to develop different and more healthy work behaviors in order for us to move towards something that better integrates our self-value and the work. So that is what we're going to do today. And by the end of this workshop, you will have the tools and the strategies to do so. So I am your workshop facilitator, and I thank you all for showing up and participating. Like I said, there are going to be many and various opportunities for you all to participate throughout this workshop. So Chizoma has already introduced myself, and I'm going to tell you more about my story as we moved into the beginning parts of this workshop. But the thing that I want to highlight is this that's highlighted in bold here. That I am particularly passionate about supporting diversity practitioners and really helping folks to transition into DEIB, either by taking on different roles or by helping them to facilitate their ERG groups, their employee resource groups. I'm also passionate about helping employees navigate difficult workplace experiences, both as an academic who has experience working and talking and leading workshops about race and racism and identity formation, also as a diversity practitioner and as a Title IX coordinator. I have to help to strategize and help employees to navigate tense and difficult work experiences that are caused by race-based or identity-based discrimination and microaggressions. So I'm very passionate about doing that, about helping people and helping BIPOC folks in the workplace to help improve their workplace experience. For this reason, and this is part of the story as well, I started a consulting firm that provides these services. So if you're interested personally, or you know someone who's interested in getting into DEIB, or who needs help navigating the workplace, or is trying to get or obtain a DEI job, and they just need some career support, getting these jobs, then please reach out to me. I'm always looking and excited to help people to move into this field. Additionally, I have an upcoming workshop specifically talking to people about making this transition into DEIB. So again, all of this information is found in my presenter booth. So if you miss this information, please reach out to me and I can share it with you, or connect with me through the platform, and I'll be happy to share this information with you as well. So by the end of this workshop, I hope that you would have gained these valuable aspects or things. The first is to understand how the stories that we tell ourselves affects our emotional, mental, social, and physical health. This is the healing aspect of the Light workshop, the Light Festival, that I'm really excited to be a part of. I also do a lot of work in work identity. So part of this workshop, through this workshop, I'm going to introduce you to a phenomenon that we have all experienced and we all live. That's a hyphenated professional identity. And we're going to discuss how the fragmentation of those professional roles can cause us to feel stressed, frustrated, and guilty, which impacts our overall work engagement. So again, fusing together this connection between our own self-worth or our feelings about how our self-value and the work that we do. And finally, we're going to move past the work-life balance, which I know is a very useful model, but I'm going to show you a different model or new model known as the worth ethic that can help to, again, forge this and deepen this connection between the work that you do and how you feel about your work without impacting the other meaningful aspects of yourself. So this is how the workshop will flow. And I like to also always begin with some housekeeping rules. With these rules, they're just kind of community guidelines so that we know that we are well acclimated into this space. We come into this space understanding that that it takes courage to be here, that we're taking risks whenever we're talking about and dealing with issues that pertain to our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, our well-being, and when we're trying to move to a place of healing. Doing that in a group setting takes courage. And so if you do feel uncomfortable by any of the information, I always encourage people to disengage and to practice the subtle art of disengagement as a way of articulating and embracing your own, practicing your own self-care. So if anything makes you uncomfortable, I do not foresee the information presented here making anyone uncomfortable, but if it does, please step away and know that there are no negative emotions connected to that. The other thing is that this is going to be an interactive experience where I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. We're going to be chatting, so feel free to utilize the chat box feature to connect with other workshop participants and to also make sure that you're engaging and interacting with the content. So if you feel more comfortable unmuting yourself or coming on camera and unmuting yourself and responding to the prompts, please do so. That is perfectly fine within this space. And also feel free to ask questions. There are no bad questions. And if you do feel uncomfortable asking it in the public setting, then feel free to send me a message or an email to thediversitydoc@gmail.com. Okay, so first prompt. Okay, so if your work habits were a hashtag, what hashtag would it be? So type in the chat box the name of your work habits. And I have some examples here. Hashtag fake it till you make it. Hashtag team no sleep. Hashtag hustle real hard. Hashtag 9 to 5, 5 to 9. So if your work habits were a hashtag, what would your hashtag be? Okay. Let's read some of the responses. Oh, Pearl said, never stop till it's done. Oh, that's a good one. That's a, oof, that resonated with me. So that means you work long hours and think nothing of it. Any others? What is your hashtag? How would you describe your work habits, your work ethic, if you will? Uchoma said, never ending work. Ooh, I don't know if that's the amount of work or that's your relationship to work, but that's also something that a lot of people have expressed as well. Jenny says, be nice and say yes to adventure. Oh, that sounds like an exciting hashtag. Odette says, keep pushing. Ugh, yes, never stop. Okay, Cass has her hand up, so please feel free to unmute.
I can't locate the chat. I'm sure I will soon, but I think my
I can't hear you. Cass, your audio sounds low.
I'm sorry. I said I cannot locate the chat, but I'm going to find it soon. But I think mine is, it'll get done. I'm sure of it.
Oh, I like that. Hashtag it'll get done. I'm sure of it. I like that. That sounds like a very healthy approach to work, to kind of not say that, not to make it a priority, but to say that, you know, and not to make it a process that's full of anxiety. So it will get done, I'm sure. And you will make sure of it. And so that's something that we're also going to think about and think through here. And Isaac said, hashtag all over the place. Oh, that's a good one too. So I'm gonna ask Chizome to help Cass to locate the chat box. But if you are on the main Accelerate Excel events platform, then there should be an arrow on the side of the screen that allows you to show a side panel. And once you're able to locate the side panel, it has options for chats, polls, attendees, and QA. I don't know if that's the same on your end, but that's what it looks like on my end. So, okay, fantastic. Okay, welcome. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so we have great hashtags. And again, all of this is trying to highlight and bring to our conscious mind our relationship to our work. So I said it in the housekeeping. I said it on the page, but I did not mention it. It's also always helpful for us to set intentions when we move into a space, a new space, a communal space, and when we work to do things intentionally. So I didn't ask you to set an intention, but as we go through this workshop, please set your intention. Now, so now we have a clear understanding in terms of what our initial relationship is to our work. Now, I'm going to, at this stage, introduce you to what is known, to how I came to understand or to begin to explore this idea of worth ethic. And it came through an affirmation by Toni Jones. That's part of her Affirmations for the Grown-Ass Woman album. And it's called Worth Ethic. And I thought that this was a provocative title. And then I listened to it. And so I want to spend the next couple of minutes playing it for you and sharing it with you. As you're listening to this affirmation, please type in the chat or write down for personal use. It doesn't have to be public. Any words or phrases that resonate with you, what strikes your ear in a different way? What is something that you probably knew, but you haven't heard it said like this? So as I play this, please write down any words or phrases that resonate with you. So here we go. Worth ethic.
unapologetic with my priorities. I ask for help despite my mental stories of being told no. I create my daily ritual. I commit to my non-negotiables. I've experienced benefits from burning out. The wins from Team No Sleep are bossy. But I'm entering a new level of my worth ethic. An involved way to do business, knowing the business of my life deserves me to flow. The relationship between my work ethic and my well-being are a healthy one. I entertain reimagining my well-being, fueling my grind. I allow myself to be still and listen to divine guidance to give myself permission to be loyal to my intuition. I won't rush anything. I choose not to stress out. RIP anxiety. I create what I want my Monday to feel like. I get to choose those thoughts. My weekend is not a retreat from my weekdays. My life, my feelings are not determined by a day of the week. My life has no day. It has moments. I receive the truth of this. I work on believing this more. I release the temptation to practice the habit of sacrificing my nutrition for the grind. I'm a hydrated woman. Knowing my well-being is the fuel to my gorgeous work ethic. Because of my work, I create agency for my business practices improving. I will organize my admin tasks for my business. I no longer procrastinate because I release the belief that I procrastinate. I treat my time as my moneymaker. I am a source of power in my business. I am not a slave to my business. I know and I learn my numbers for my business. Or I find someone who can. My business systems are of excellence. I attract assistance to the needs of my business. I know who I serve. I'm clear on my strategy to be powerful, impact people, and to profit. I'm so aligned in my professional and personal and purposeful path that I know when to pivot. This harmony is so fly. I am in complete harmony with myself, transforming my work ethic to my worth ethic. I am not a perfectionist. I am an excellence. I can't compromise excellence, and that's not my standard. Literally, excellence is the only possibility for me. So I put my life and work in order, in alignment to flow, so I can get this work done. On a daily basis, I make the choice to flow. I arrest the temptation to enroll my mind, body, and soul into anxiety, stress, and burning myself out. I trade in my work ethic for my work ethic, so I will never seek validation by the results of my work. Even when I'm faced with what it seems to be problematic, seems like lack and overwhelming, I choose to be at ease. I choose to breathe and flow. Knowing all is well, and I remain proactive with what is required of me. I'm a human being, not a human doing. I accept this full life of business, love, relationships, achieving, and responsibility. I manifested this full life. I am in business on purpose, not a business that makes me a busy mess. I'm a businesswoman. You heard?
Okay. Okay, I see some responses. So what resonated with you? What hit you? What caught you? Okay, so I see Modupa says, I treat my time as my moneymaker. Ovette says, I cannot compromise excellence. My favorite line is that I am not a perfectionist. I am an excellenceist. That hit me when I first heard it. Chizome said, commit to my non-negotiables. RIP anxiety. Yes. I released the belief of procrastination. Titiola said, my life of moments, not days. Uchoma said, love it. I'm unapologetic about my priorities. Yes, and repeated it. I am unapologetic about my priorities. Yes. So this, again, was when I heard this set of affirmations, it completely caused me to reconsider, to rethink my relationship to my work, to, as Tony says in this affirmation, to trade in my work ethic for my worth ethic. And so part of this is going to walk into that sense of discovery and openness and freedom and liberation that I found. I'm going to share that experience and that journey with you in hopes that it's going to also help you to make the same journey and to have the same courage. So I want to begin by talking about hyphenated professional identities, because this was my first entryway. This was the first time that I thought that what I was doing is not working, that my relationship to my work isn't actually producing a great, a better self-esteem, a better relationship. And I didn't feel, for the most part of my career, very fulfilled by the work that that I do. And I know that's not everyone's experience, but where I pinpoint it is this idea and this need to hyphenate and to fill all the core of what I do with all these hyphens. So a hyphenated professional identity is a type of multiple workplace identity. It's a mosaic that is kept together and held together by a very thin line. And it's important that it's hyphenated, that we really lean into this idea of a hyphen, because the hyphen is a very thin line, meaning that it could easily break. It could easily fracture. It could easily be too much. It could easily turn into a burden, and all of those roles and the demands of each of these positions can collapse onto me. And sometimes as we are developing and building and overcommitting, as we continue to move up the corporate ladder, we're always on the brink, or in threat of having these having these hyphenated professional identities implode. So as I'm going to talk to you and share my own personal identity, my own journey through my own hyphenated identities, I would like you all to list your hyphenated professional identities in the chat. So what are all of the roles and careers that you currently hold, and the ways in which you are living your best hyphenated, complicated, multiple professional identity? So please place that in the chat as I share my own experience. And so one of the reasons why we have hyphenated identities is because there are aspects of our selves. One, we are a complicated, dynamic self. And there are aspects of ourselves that we realize cannot be fulfilled only in one function, only in one way. And so the reason why we have accumulated so many professional identities is because we identify with these aspects. They're things hobbies we enjoy, things that we're good at, skills that we have that are manifested and are created and fulfill so many different roles. So my journey to learning that I live a hyphenated professional life, and that my life, and this is a way that I describe my life, is that I've lived a rather fragmented life. Began earnestly in grad school. So in grad school, I went to Penn State, like Juliet, like Collins. So I'm aware of the Penn 3 model, and I'm so excited about the book that they have out, about this festival that they put together. So I'm really excited about how they're contributing and expanding public health. But in grad school, in my experience, I was in a philosophy program. And I was recruited into that program to diversify the field, to help build a sub-discipline in philosophy known as the critical philosophy of race. While doing that, I noticed that there were certain experiences that fellow grad students were having. And so I began to create a grad student, to participate in the grad student or association in the philosophy department, and to put together several grad school grad student programs and initiatives. So that was my first experience as a hyphenated identity, where I wasn't just a grad student, but I was a conference organizer. Then I became a public programmer. Then I became a departmental liaison. Then I became a researcher, because you have to conduct research. And then I became a presenter, a workshop facilitator, all within the same experience. And again, they were seamless. We were told that those are just the normal functions and the normal roles that you wear as an academic or as a graduate student. So it was, so I didn't think anything of it until I obtained my first faculty position at Westchester University. Now, in that role, I was hired as an assistant professor in the philosophy department, specializing in critical philosophy of race. And in that capacity, I was responsible for educating and coming to an understanding and helping the students, faculty, and at times staff come to a deeper understanding of the experiences of the diverse bodies that make up the campus environment. And then also leading different, not only the courses, but also the different workshops to get us towards a more inclusive curriculum and campus experience. So most of my work outside of teaching, of being an educator, started being about becoming an advocate and advocating for students of color, for staff of color, for fellow faculty members of color like myself, to improve their experiences on campus and to limit or to highlight and bring to administrators' attention the disproportionate experience, the disproportionate way they were experiencing the campus, and also maneuvering through the hurdles that is the tenure process. So I became at that point an educator and also an advocate. At the same time, and this is part of the grad school experience, I became jaded, or at least I found that the resources to understand my own hyphenated identity as an African American, that's a hyphen, African American immigrant, I wasn't finding the resources that I needed in philosophical texts, in the dense space of philosophy. So I started to branch out and then back to my original love, which is African literature. And within that context, I found resources that depicted the experiences that I had going through this world, coming to understand what the meaning and the impact of race, and understanding, and having a deeper understanding of the African diaspora. And so by the time I became a faculty member, I wanted to have both. I wanted to have this professional career as an academic, but I also decided to start a literary arts public programming company that allowed, that did more than what a book club did. What we did was we put together unique, curated, interactive, and immersive programs and events around African literature. So in that context, I was not only an academic, an advocate, I was now a public programmer. And at the same time, because I'm building this company, I became an entrepreneur. So again, all of these hyphenated identities. I decided then that I wanted that, rather than that I was becoming stretched too thin, as you can imagine, as we all experience, and that I wanted greater integration in these identities. So then I made the choice to leave my academic position, to stop my literary arts company, the African Literati, and to pursue DEI full time. And the reason why I wanted to pursue DEI is that I thought that it was a great integration of all of the different hats and roles that I played. It dealt with race, it dealt with institution work, it had an aspect where I'm advocating, and I'm also public programming. So I said, great, I found a role that actually integrated and eliminated the hyphens around my professional identity. But even now, I still feel that I'm wearing a lot of hats. For example, my official title within my organization is Director of DEIB, Deputy Title IX Coordinator, and Assistant Professor of Assistant Professor of Liberal Arts. So within the capacity, I'm still living a fragmented life, and so. And so I had to come to realize that it wasn't that there's something else that was happening that produced this multiplicity of professional identities, but also that was impacting my relationship to my work. That was causing it to feel suffocating and me feeling stagnant in the midst of all of these roles. And so then I started doing research on workplace identities. And then I realized and found that there is a myth of complementarity. That means that there is an idea that we can have and wear all of these different hats, and that we can adequately be great at all of these different roles, and that doing so makes me a more dynamic person, that I'm actually adding to and making my profile and my dossier much more attractive to these organizations because I can do multiple things. I'm not like my other academics who can only do research. I am all of these things that you see on the screen. And so again, there's this idea that I wear all of these hats, they complement each other, and it helps me to be better, to know that I could draw on all of these different skills. But again, there has been a lot of research done about just how these identities have expanded and created certain types of professional and personal conflicts. And this is why we see the advent of the work-life balance in order to restore this balance, in order to correct what has been fractured by the multiplicity of these roles. But there hasn't actually been a lot of research done to focus on how people reconcile their multiple identities. And that's where I want to focus on. So I want to focus and build on this idea that there is a greater need to move beyond the model of the work-life balance in order for us to find much more peace in the work that we do, that moves beyond just, again, this rash idea of complementary existence. So since the complementary aspect of a work-life balance didn't help me, I sought a better model, which after listening to Tony Jones, is now the worth ethic. So I'm going to move into a deeper understanding of that. And if you haven't already done so, please, great. I see some hyphenated identities coming into the chat box. Okay. So everyone is aware of and familiar now, and I thank you so much. I want to kind of give a shout out to Pearl. So in an earlier workshop as part of this festival, Dr. P. Samadi introduced this idea that Maslow's hierarchy of needs is actually based on theories that were first presented in Native American writings and cultures and traditions. And so Pearl helped us to kind of identify and to find the source of that. And so if anyone is interested in learning more, then I would definitely reach out to Pearl, who's part of this workshop, to kind of to start that exploration, to kind of see the actual origins of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But if we're using this flawed model, one of the things that we notice is that one of our hierarchy of needs, one of the things listed in the hierarchy of needs is love and belonging. And so when we're thinking about the places where we need to belong, home, which is our personal residence, which is a private space, is absolutely the first. But the thing that I was fascinated to learn when I began this researching into work identity is that the need to belong at work comes second, comes after the need to belong at home. And there are times where, and there's reasons that justify that. There's an explanation that, you know, why that makes sense. But I thought that that was an interesting point to make. And so it made me come back to something that Collins said, and thank you, Collins, for joining this workshop, and asked through the Penn 3 model, and this is something that public health individuals and practitioners also have to confront, is this question of who am I without work? And those are not just rhetorical questions, but questions that begin this process of moving us away from this kind of valuation, deep valuation of work towards a deeper valuation of the self. So moving away from work as the sense of belonging and moving us back to something that's personal and private in as home. Okay. Okay, so what is your work identity? And I'll be done in a few minutes. So and give enough time for Q&A. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. So we all know that organizations have identities. They have types and they have behaviors. But what we don't know, or what hasn't been highlighted, is that there are two other categories related to work or to organizations in term, and this is how the concept or the notion of identity is framed. So in addition to having an organizational identity, which is again the values, the mission, and how the organization describes itself, we also have occupational identity and work identities. And work identity is the core of what I want to present here. But in order to get to occupational identity, we have to be clear of what the in order to get to work identity, we have to be clear about the occupational identity. So our occupational identity is the composite sense of who a person is and wishes to become in their occupation. So when we have work goals, when we talk about our 5-year plan, and we highlight aspects of work, that's what we're talking about, the occupational identity. Those also relate to the skills and the behaviors and the practices that make us good and make us great employees, but also great in our distinct field. So that's the occupational identities. When you're thinking about the skills and the work ethics and the capacities that we have that make us good at what we do. So the work identity is built off of both of the occupational identity, but also adds on a deeper self-concept that includes our self-image, the organizational identity, the occupational identity, and other roles and behaviors that we adopt or adapt when we're performing work. So if you've ever said to yourself that I show up to work one way, and then in my private life or my personal or social life, I show up a different way, that's what work identity is highlighting. The fact that there is a specific and particular way that we perform and we show up and we act at work that's different from how we act in our personal life, in our social life, and when we are alone. And the thing that I want to highlight here is that most times the work identity is a defense mechanism, right? It's a way that especially people of color, women of color, have built up a barrier to where the work doesn't have direct access to them. So it's a helpful mechanism that prevents us to safeguard, that allows us to safeguard ourselves, to protect ourselves, even in spaces of work. why I introduce it now and why I wanted to revisit it within the context of this workshop and to talk to you about it today is because that work identity, rather than being independent of work, is starting to move closer to the occupational identity, and in certain ways, a deeper sense or a deeper alignment with the organizational identity. And the changing nature of work has also contributed to that. So we know that that there has been a new wave of our relationship to work, where we're selecting jobs and careers that align to our core beliefs and values. So if the organization's mission, vision, and practices are not in alignment with our own core personal behaviors, values, and beliefs, we are disinclined to accept jobs and roles from that organization. So again, we're seeing a process where the organizational identity is identical to our personal identity. So again, it subsumes the work and occupational identity, makes these things one. And that is part of the reason why we are struggling when it comes to work. We are finding ourselves overstressed, overworked, burned out, and just having negative experiences and negative associations with work. So part of what creates that, apologies, I moved too fast. Okay, part of what establishes that or creates that is with the notion of a work ethic. And the work ethic itself is just, again, the principle that hard work is intrinsically virtuous or worthy of reward. Now, the idea of a work ethic is what I described as this infusion, this kind of identity between the organizational identity, the occupational identity, and your own personal identity, where you see yourself as an extension of the work that you do. Now, typically, there's nothing wrong with that, and I don't want to present it as there's anything wrong with that. I'm opening up the possibility that there's a better model that we can use rather than start from this equivocation of hard work with self-worth. And I think that is what the intervention of a worth ethic and this trading of a work ethic to a worth ethic allows us to do. To reconstitute ourselves, to find a sense of value in ourselves that we can then bring into the work that we do. So what are some work habits that I've learned from all of these hyphenated identities? So I've learned, and the work ethics that I've accumulated by playing and belonging in all of those roles is that I need to hustle real hard, that good things come to those who hustle. We all know the 20 times 50 rule, that you have to work twice as hard to get half as much. I learned, and this is one of my points of struggle about perfectionism, that I have to dot every I, cross every T, never let them see you sweat, never make a mistake, always show up on time, and always and never see them, let them see you falter in any way. I also belonged to Team No Sleep for a long time, and equated sleep deprivation with being good at my job. And then something that I picked up early in grad school is to always be working, or to always look like you're working. I was told explicitly that I needed to carry a book with me at all times, because if anyone ever picked up on the fact that I was not working, or that I was not reading, I was not researching, then that would be a negative stripe against me. So I also learned from developing these work ethics and that the key to success is discipline and hard work or effort. So in the chat box, write your work ethic. So what lessons have you learned navigating professional work environments? And so that's what I want you all to think about. And so the key thing, or one of the strategies to kind of move from a work ethic to a worth ethic, is the same process that moves us from microaggressions to microaffirmations. So a microaggression, if you've ever engaged in a workshop on microaggression, or even on unconscious bias, you'll learn that a microaggression are brief and commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative racial slights and insults towards people of color. So what I want you to consider, to think about within the context of a microaggression, are the ways in which these work ethics that we have learned in these environments are slights, are harmful slights to our sense of self-worth. And so the goal is to replace these slights with micro affirmations, that is, small acts, which are often ephemeral and hard to see, events that are public and private, often unconscious, but very effective, which occur wherever people wish to help others to succeed. So a micro affirmation responds to a microaggression with a sense of positivity. So with an affirmation, so this is why I gave you so many different affirmations at the beginning of this workshop, that you can respond and recite to any of these, work-related slights or microaggressions that you tell yourself. So on this slide, I have, so this is a slide where if we had the time, we would practice turning these microaggressions into micro affirmations. So I did a couple for you, and I'm going to kind of just read them. So the first one is the 2 times 50 rule, which is you have to work twice as hard to get half as much. One way to combat this, another thing, is to assess it and to also complement it with a truer truth. That is, and one of the things that I learned is that my 50% is actually most people's 100%. So I don't actually have to buy into this 2 times 50 rule, because I can do what I can do half as much and give half as much, and so that I can save the rest for me. And that prioritization of the self and my own value is what we want to learn and take away from this. Okay. So a work ethic. So your work-life balance, most people are familiar with it, but the problem with the work-life balance is that it creates a state of equilibrium. So if we think about it within the context of a hyphenated identity, you haven't eliminated the hyphens. You just created a balance. You just equated them. You just kept the hyphens. And so for me, the work-life model doesn't actually work. And so this is why I'm working towards a worth ethic, which moves to integrate these professional practices, and prioritize my own sense of self, what I care about, my ethical values, and allows that to dictate what I do. So how do you develop a worth ethic? So first, you evaluate your values. And some of the questions that you have to ask is, who are you without achievement? Who are you without your work ethic, without business, without currency? So get down to the elements. Who are you? What do you value? How do you, and then what are your goals? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, in 10 years, and how will you accomplish this? And then begin to make a plan that starts from your values and from how you want to be treated and how you want to feel at work in yourself. Then the third step is to determine how you want to feel at work. So you move from the personal into the occupational, not from the occupational to the personal, or to the worth. And in the third step, you're asking yourself, what are your work non-negotiables? How do you want to show up in the world? How do you want to feel? And then you reinforce these messages with micro affirmations. And then the final thing is that you show up. You stand firm on your values. You value yourself first, you demand that others value you as well, and then you set appropriate work boundaries. So one of the things that I spoke to with my sister is that she was struggling with creating bad boundaries. There's a set time where that she shows that she gets off at work, and and her boss tends to call her after that. And she was struggling to create boundaries at work, and I had to tell her that that you keep answering. You have to set boundaries with yourself as well. They will continue to call because you keep picking up the phone. Start by setting boundaries around your time to let other people know that you value your out of work life, your personal life, you value yourself more than the work that you do. And then you'll start to find deeper integration between the work that you do and your own sense of fulfillment and relationship with that work. So that is the end of this presentation. So I thank you for joining, for hanging on, and for participating, and for just the wonderful conversations that you all have put in the chat box. Again, please feel free to reach out to me with any questions, follow-ups, or if you are in need of any of my services. So I'm very excited to have this time with you. And thank you again for joining.
Wow, that was really, really powerful, Dr. Oke. Oh my gosh, I think I would make a shirt with like every affirmation from today. It's just amazing, and it really resonates with me, even being an early career investigator. And I'm sure a lot of us on this call too can really resonate with most of what you had mentioned. So I'm going to open it up for questions. We have probably like 2 more minutes to answer any questions or comments that folks might have. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to anyone. You can use the chat box, or you can unmute yourself if you have questions or comments for Dr. Oke. And like she had mentioned, if you can also reach out to her via email as well, if you would like to. If there are none, I think I might have one question to kind of wrap up our session today. So Dr. Oke, what advice would you give us for, like I mentioned, for someone who's in an early career investigator like myself, and I believe you were once in my shoes as well. What advice would you give us in terms of achieving that work ethics as we navigate academia or industry in general?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things I didn't mention while I was talking about my academic journey but it is related and connected to how I kind of chose and made certain decisions about what I was going to do. So I am in DEIB, which is not one of those career options that was conveyed or communicated to me in graduate school. And I wish that it had been. And I wish that I would have been able to explore a wide breadth of different options, career paths that would have allowed me to embrace a certain type of integrated sense of self much sooner than I have been able to do it now. So DEI is a way that I've found me to be able to kind of conduct research, to also present, to also public program, to also work on improving institutions, to work on advocating for marginalized groups. But again, I did not know that. So if I gave any advice, it would be to follow your heart. This is why I think the worth ethic is such a powerful tool to kind of figure out what you want to do and how you see your own research and your own career path, and outside of just those options that are presented to you, that are given to you, because they are very limiting and they're based on very limited information. People have the amount of jobs out there things that you wouldn't even know that you're like, oh, I could do that with my research, with my experience, with even the hobbies, the things that I think are side hustles could actually be the core. And then the research could be the hobby, you know? And so it's just about figuring out how you want to define your life, what you want to do with your life, and then leading from that space first, leading from you first, from that personal space. And then finding a career which you will, and if you can't, create one and let others follow.
Right. Wow. That's super powerful. Thank you so much, Dr. Ronke. And thank you everyone for listening in. At this time, we will go ahead and close out the session.
Thank you,
Again,
everyone.
thank you.